Thanks for checking out today's episode of The Experience Curve, where we explore the personal journeys of accomplished individuals, breaking down the steps they took to get where they are, which I hope just might inspire you on your own path forward. Today, I'm joined by a true powerhouse in the world of personal finance and self development, Catherine Collins. Now, Catherine is not only a nationally recognized financial educator and author of the empowering book, Mom's Got Money, but she's also the co-founder of the transformative personal development company, 5-Year You. Her story is one of resilience, reinvention, and relentless pursuit of personal growth. In this episode, we'll uncover Catherine's journey from starting with just a $10 domain name to building a six-figure digital media business, all while balancing the demands of motherhood and entrepreneurship. We'll explore her mission to eliminate shame and guilt surrounding money and how she's helping individuals find inner peace through self-reflection and self-love. So get ready to embark on a journey of personal growth and financial empowerment. Kat, thank you for taking the time to join me today on this show. Glad we connected online, and I'm excited to kind of jump into this because I think you have a really, really fun story for people to hear, not just, young moms, but, anyone looking, into the finance world. And again, Millennial Moms might be the focus of your book that we'll get to, but I think there's a lot of takeaways people can gain from just hearing you. So thanks for your time.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. I'm really glad to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And, you had this journey, right? Where, like some people, maybe you went to a domain server and bought a $10 name, right? And somehow like it became this like six-figure digital media company. And, that's like super inspirational
Thank you.
to me and obviously others listening, right? So like,
Yeah.
could you kind of take us back like to the beginning and how you started this business, or maybe when you like realized you had this talent for writing?
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I always like to tell people it's very common for like people who work online to say, "Oh yeah, follow me and buy this course and you'll make 10 grand a month." So I started my blog in 2010. So we
Hmm.
are like old time, dinosaur blogging land. So it has taken me a very long time to build this business. It was not overnight. And I was actually a broke graduate student. I had a $14,000 a year stipend. I was like a teaching assistant. And I read a lot of blogs, and I decided to like just start one night. I was really looking for a creative outlet. I've always enjoyed writing. English has always been my favorite subject. And I was getting really bogged down with like the intense grad school writing. And I just wanted to do something fun. So I started a blog. I called it Budget Blonde. And I wrote all about like my thrift store finds and how I decorated my grad school apartment with like stuff I find on the side of the road, which I kind of still do now, to be honest with you. One day someone emailed me and asked me if I could write about mortgages because I had written about my budget. I guess I've always been frugally minded, and I had never bought a house. I knew nothing about mortgages, but I was a researcher and I was also broke. So I was like, totally, I can write this article about mortgages. I would love to. And I just researched it, I figured it out, and I sent it off. And I think that first client was really drawn to just the fact that I made money approachable and talked about it in a fun way. But I used to get paid like $8, $9, $10 an article. And it's just one client after another, pitching over time, replacing lower paying ones sort of got me to today. But we're well over 10 years into it now.
So basically, you kind of figured this thing of writing. Was it something when you were little that you were into writing, or you just sort of like were, okay, I know I can do this, and here's sort of a means to make a little bit of income, while I'm in this college thing?
Yeah, I have always loved it. Like I was the kid, I made like a family newspaper, was like editor of my fifth grade newspaper. And I've always loved to read. Even now, reading is my escape. I just love it so much. And I've always like had a knack for it. Never been much of a, despite being like a money blogger, never been much of like a finance or a math person. Like it did okay, but I always just excelled with with writing. And I used to like edit people's papers in college, for money, and edited people's personal statements for like medical school and law school. Like I just found all these different like ways to hustle and make money. And so I knew that I could be a freelance writer, but it didn't really click until someone reached out and asked me to write something for them from finding me on the blog.
Right. So you start this blog, but obviously, like I mentioned in the beginning, you did have a book that came out in 2021 called Mom's Got Money.
Right.
What's this
Right.
sort of trajectory from like, okay, I'm in college or I'm helping people, write personal statements, right? To like, okay, I'm going to write a book. Like, what's the process? For someone listening, it's like, okay, I do see a lot of people online with books. It seems like Amazon, a lot of people like,
Yeah.
they have books, but like, how do you get that done? What's that process?
Well, I really hope everyone listening has an easier time of it than I did. Again, it seems like, someone is online, they have this big following, they get a book deal, it's a bestseller. It was not like that for me. Again, a book was sort of my bucket list item, even from the time I was a child. Always wanted to write a book. And I have made a lot of friends and colleagues in this industry over the years, and many of them moved to writing a book as a way to create a personal brand once personal branding kind of became a thing. Maybe about 8, 9, 10 years ago, it kind of became a thing. And so I saw many friends get book deals, and I got the idea. I paid for a coaching program to kind of go through the process, learn what it was like. I will tell you that the way that book publishing used to be was like you submitted a book idea or book proposal. You might get rejected a bunch of times, but if a publisher liked it, they would purchase the rights and they would publish your book. Now, the most important part of any book proposal is like your marketing. And so I learned this through this program, and I listed every podcast I'd ever been on, every radio show, every TV appearance, even if it was like my local news station, every article I've written for like large sites. And I basically had to prove that I had like some skin in the game, and that I had to give them a plan for how I was going to promote it as well. So it's very, very different now. You could be the most amazing writer. Certainly there are many more amazing writers than me, but you have to sort of package yourself for the book deal. It took me 4 years and 28 rejections to get my book deal. It was a very, very, very long process for me. Haven't haven't
Yeah.
quite heard of other ones. Some people are like, yeah, a year, I pitched or whatever. It was a very long process for me. Switched agents, did the whole thing, but I got it done. It's not something that you do to make money, but more of like that checklist to create authority, get other deals, get on the news, and just help the other parts of your business.
Yeah, so it sounds like, even from college, you were sort of hustling, like, helping people write,
I
right?
am I'm still that way.
Yeah, and I think the social proof too is like something that people will say, like, okay, even like if you're a musician, you have a catalog
Yeah,
of
it's
songs,
the
we want to
same
come out and see
thing.
you play, but there's everyone is in a band and everyone, right? So yeah, what's
You
going to
got to
make
be
you,
hustling.
yeah, and
That's
stand
right.
out from everything else, and t- along that way, like, was there something? And I know you said again, like, you didn't come from a finance or accounting background or a love for either, but you did gravitate towards writing a book for these like millennial moms, again, Mom's Got
Yes.
Money, to sort of take control of their finances. Like, was that something that something hit you one day, or was it a personal experience that sort of I get inspire the writing of that subject?
Yeah, I think it happened very organically. And I don't even remember like consciously choosing money as the blog topic, because at the time I was just writing about my life. I didn't quite realize that my ability to manage money forever. And my mom talks about taking me to Disney World, and she gave each of my siblings $100 bill, which was like so much money back then. And she said I like agonized over whether or not to buy this $13 necklace. And she was like, oh my God, like just pick already, And so going all the way back to being a child, I've just been always very conscious about it. And I wrote the blog as a way to like share what I was up to. And I guess I just like don't have other hobbies besides like thrifting. I wasn't like, oh, I'm on the golf course today. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. And I think it was because I wrote about my budget. I was just trying to give people advice like, hey, you could do the grad school thing if you want. Here's how to survive. And, this is my first apartment on my own and all of these different things. And I just started getting these writing jobs, and then I applied for, and again, one of my first clients was like a budget beauty blog, and I'd write like the top 8 mascaras, under $5 or something. And just over time, the more clients that I got, the more knowledge I got. Soon it was mortgages, investing, insurance. And again, you add all this time. And then I realized as I become a mom, as I get in these groups of friends, that there's so many women who don't manage their finances. They'd give it to their spouse, or they'd be so stressed about the cost of their kids that they wouldn't. All the things that I did normally, like hustling and figuring stuff out and flipping things, I realized like not everybody was doing that. Like once I started to talk to people and be like, you want to get your kid like in this expensive class, like girl, just go in your house and like you have $300 in your house for this 8-week program you want your kid in. And she was like, what? I'm like, yeah, girl, just sign them up. You have that in your house. You can get it this weekend. They'd be like, really? I'm like, yes. So I just like to help people. And I don't like when people place limitations on themselves. So it just sort of became my mission through, again, a very natural process and learning about money on my own to be like, wait, like if I can do it coming from graduate school, I was in graduate school for history, if I can do it and I can manage my money, then I can teach other women to do the same. And it's very empowering, and it gives women a lot of independence and control over their life and their choices if they understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty incredible, because I think you do. People feel like, oh, I can't do this or I can't do that. So it's almost like you're bringing people to this realization of like the worth they didn't know they had to some degree.
Oh yeah.
And people feeling like, oh, I can do this. Even for someone that's a stay-at-home parent might feel like, oh, what do I do all day? I don't really, what's my value, and hey, if you can be like the accountant for the house, maybe.
Oh my
Right.
gosh, it's so many hours. I mean, it's so many hours a week of work for that, for sure. And just having knowledge of it, crazy things happen, unexpected happens. I've had friends whose husbands have unexpectedly passed away. I myself got divorced 2 years ago. I never would have thought that would happen in a million years. And I know that because I knew how to manage money, that like I knew that was a big part of me being able to sort of survive that period at first and then like kind of get back to myself and thrive a little bit more.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Still,
the safety
still,
skill.
still on the upswing of thriving, but yeah, it is. I mean, it's as basic as tying your shoes. And like I always tell moms, I'm like, dude, like you're a mom. Like raising a kid, and you're a parent, so is the hardest thing that anyone can possibly do. It will just your brain every day. If you can do that, certainly you can manage your money. You can learn about investing. Like, don't worry about all the finance bros and all their big words. Like, they're just big words.
Yes.
It's like, if you can figure this out and you raise a human and you do the best you can, this is a piece of cake. It's just money. That's it.
Yeah, it's true, because you go to a lot of real estate investing, conventions and stuff. You do see maybe an underrepresentation of females. You're seeing it,
Right.
increase to
More
a
and
degree.
more,
Yeah,
but
it's increasing, but for sure, like again, you did use the term finance bros, right? That's the majority of the ads you'll see online, on social media, books, or whatever it might be, are hitting you typically with the same type of person, and it is cool to kind of see these girls kind of come out, because like they can do just as much as, right,
yeah.
as
Well, and all the marketing for women is like, oh my gosh, like you guys can learn how to coupon and let's work on your meal plan and you guys can help your family save so much money. And like those things are important and great, but it's like you can also learn like dividend investing, like coupon. Yeah, fine. Any day of the week, find one on your phone and save $10, but you're capable of like so much more than that. And it's the messaging though of what I probably receive in my Facebook ads and what you might be completely different because of that.
Exactly. No, you're 100%
Yeah.
right. Like what I'm seeing, because again, I'm into real estate investing myself,
Yeah.
and that is the sort of ads I get. It's kind of the same guy, just kind of like in your face about, you need to do this, and like you said, these buzzwords or whatever,
A little bit more aggressive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that some people might be put off by that, just in general, whether you're, a guy or a girl, you're like, all right, this is a little too much. Again, if you kind of break it down, people can get out there and do it. And I think for moms, especially, there is, and maybe more, when I grew up, um, you know, again, I think my mom, my step, yeah, we with different, aunts, uncles, grandmothers, your grandparents, your grandmother typically stayed home, you know,
Yeah, for sure.
so as things are evolving, right? It's funny because you mentioned like yourself at Disney World. That's kind of my daughter. She's like very frugal. You'll be like, oh, here you go. And she's like, I don't want to spend that money on that.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like it's worth it, or that seems like too much money to
Yeah.
spend. You're like, okay, you have to have fun too, when it
Yeah.
comes to,
There's balance.
yeah, exactly.
Frugal
So
People Anonymous. Yeah, there's balance.
the balance is definitely key, and that's very cool about how you're bringing that to him. So when you get like the actual book and you're like, okay, I've had the rejections, I found someone that's going to sort of work with me here. Like, what's the process for someone listening? Are there like different iterations, versions of manuscript you're turning in all these, to your editor maybe, or how does that
Hmm.
process work when you're, because again, I've never written a book, but it's interesting to me
Yeah,
just to hear how that breaks down
sure.
for someone who's not like an author by trade.
Yeah. Well, if you write a fiction book, it is a different process. So for fiction writers, they write the whole book and then they get an agent by sending out the whole book, and then an agent decides whether or not to represent them. But if you're a nonfiction writer, like I am, and like many entrepreneurs are, you write a concept and maybe a chapter or two and send it out, get an agent like that. So your question was what happens like when I got it. So crazy thing, like I got my book deal and was so excited, obviously, after all this process, all these many years. The next day begins the 2-week COVID
Uh,
lockdown. And so the timing was just like, ah. So I, pick up my kids from spring break. I assume I'm bringing them back in a week. And then, of course, they don't go back. And so for me, the writing the book process, I had I have twins. So I had kindergartners home doing Zoom school while writing the book. So it took me 7 months to write it. I actually submitted it all at once. Each publisher is different. Some publishers, I guess it just depends on your writing sample or the book or whatever. But I had a deadline and I just, wrote the words. It was a 60,000 word book and I turned it in and then I got back edits. Actually, with my publisher, there was a minor edits, but you'll hear a lot of writers be like, the edits. There's some publishers have developmental writing where they'll like really get into the nitty gritty, and then others just have like a proofreading writing. But yeah, so you turn it in, get some edits, make the edits, and I was involved in the book cover process. I was kind of particular about how I wanted my cover. I wanted it bright and colorful and eye catching. So I went through some iterations of that. And it was a pretty smooth process, minus me being like exhausted at night doing voice to text with these little babies doing kindergarten Zoom.
No, that's cool. Like, because that's got to be crazy in the pandemic because it's okay. Like, they didn't stop people from reading books, right? We were, but you
Yeah.
couldn't go to school. You could, right? Certain things that were limited or like disallowed at that time. But to have two kids at that age that are, constantly in need of attention, even with us, like, my daughter was in fourth, I think, at the time. So you're
Yeah.
kind of like teaching, yeah, they're on Zoom for a little bit, but it wasn't like, okay, I'll see you in 8 hours.
Yeah. With kindergartners, it was like barely, they like barely did some Zoom. Like, yeah, it's kind of a blur. Yeah. You kind of just do it.
Well, for sure. I mean, voice to text, things like things you would, do to kind of help get flesh out ideas. Just make sure you don't forget them, I would imagine,
Yeah.
right?
I know, I know. I had like for a while, when I went back and reviewed it, I found this whole like string paragraph about like, "Mommy, can I have
Yeah.
popcorn?" and blah 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 blah. And it was like, I was like, "Oh man, that's not supposed to be there." It's like it's just crazy. It was a crazy time.
Yeah, it was, and I wonder how, like, now with people who, using AI and stuff, right, and stuff like
Yeah,
that, that was sort of there, but it wasn't that big of a thing, but I wonder if, you people are kind of going on autopilot for to some degree, right? With concepts and things like that.
There's so many more tools now to use. Like, I mean, I could see the whole book proposal process going a lot smoother. Just even having AI write a paragraph about marketing and things like that. I'm sure there's much more language in the contracts now about whether or not you're allowed to use it and stuff like that. But yeah, the biggest AI was Google, talk to text at that time.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was gonna say. You kind of sound like a couple of people I know are like, script writers and for movies, and they submit like a treat, and maybe they don't anymore, but back in like 2015, you'd be just submitting a treatment, and that would be like your sort of, again, you might be two chapters or wherever it might be, depending on what the publisher's looking for. So like, what's the feeling when, okay, we're done, it's out, and then you see it like on Amazon and all these other platforms? Is that like you're okay? This is cool. This is like totally, like I did it kind of thing. What's that feeling?
Yeah. I mean, it's really a dream come true. It's like really the biggest box I checked, and I really, really try to enjoy it. And I'm kind of a person that doesn't like celebrate too much. Like I'm like, all right, I did it. What's the next goal? Okay, I did it. What's the next goal? And so I know that about myself. So I really tried to be like, all right, Gavin, this is cool. Okay. Like, I took the twins to go see it in Barnes and Noble, like our local Barnes and Noble. And like, that was a really cool thing for me because they saw me writing it and they knew mommy was writing a book, but just to take them to the bookstore, we filmed a reel of us dancing around. It's one of the only reels I like show their face, but it was a really, really good experience. It wasn't on any bestseller list or anything like that, but like it was important to me. And it's part of my legacy. It exists in the world now, and it's going to be there after I leave. So I was really excited about that, and I feel like I have more books in me too. But I need a little break after that whole after that round. So
Yeah, no, that's pretty amazing to have that experience with your kids because, kids are going to, bookstores and, there's the kids section at all these stores, but to actually be like, okay, mom wrote that book. Yeah, that's got to be pretty amazing to share that with your kids, especially at such a young age. If they were older, it might be like, okay, cool, yeah,
yeah,
but
whatever, mom.
yeah,
Big
but
whoop.
that age, it's
But are you
yeah,
on YouTube? Are you like
TikTok,
Mr.
yeah.
Beast? No.
But having said that, from that book, you did land some opportunities. I think it was Good Morning America. You were in, Huffington Post Live, Cheddar TV. Like, how does someone like coming out of that, you're done the book and start to secure these sort of appearances, or like how do you get that messaging out to these audiences? You have someone that helps you, or is it DIY?
That's a really good question. Yeah, so some of those came before the book and some came after. So like some of them were like integral parts of the book proposal and being like, I have been on these shows talking about money, so give me a book deal. Yes, I worked with a talent agent out of New York City. I met him through a colleague, and he represents a lot of, I guess, I don't know, you call them like personal finance influencer types. Like I don't really consider myself an influencer, but people who are trying to make a name for themselves in that category. And I met him at a conference and interviewed with him, and he decided to represent me. And because he works with a lot of different personal finance personalities, there are some far bigger than I am. And so the Good Morning America came because a much bigger finance personality he represented couldn't make
Oh,
it that
okay.
day.
Yeah.
And it was about parenting. It was about like the cost of kids. And so he said, I don't like, she's not available, but I have Catherine. Would you be interested in her? And at that time, I lived in New Jersey, just outside of New York City. So I was in a close proximity for them to come to my very small apartment with little tiny twin babies and film. And so most of my media appearances have come through that agent, and most of my influencer like filming video with brands has come through that agent. And he earns after I get paid, so he earns like 20% of what I make. So I've had some really cool experiences. And then if I get an offer like in my email and it was like, hey, like we saw your video with this person, we're interested in videos on this, I can choose to negotiate on my own and deal with it, or I can say, my agent handles this and then he negotiates harder or something, I don't know, and like gets a bigger check for that. So yeah, I did have help. And again, it's just through building relationships over time with other people in my community.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I personally went to school outside of New York City at Montclair on the Jersey side. So
Okay.
yeah, so
Oh
I've had
yeah.
apart
Yeah, yeah,
I've had
not far at
apartments
all. Yeah.
in Jersey. I know that life. But that's cool. So an agent. So the agent really will help. Again, bring opportunities, and if they come to you, it's up to you whether you want to bring them in on it for their help and guidance. And if you don't have to, you don't have to.
Yeah, and I think, of course, every agent contract's going to be different, but the phrase that you're looking for, people are interested, is
Hmm.
talent agent or talent agent for online creators or for podcasters or something like that. And sometimes you'll get pitched by agents who are like maybe new and want to represent people. And then other times you can negotiate it on your own. But I will say, I had no idea like the amount of income that people were getting from these things until I worked with an agent. And I was like, oh man, I have been really lowballed. I'm like, oh my God, thank you for this. And, so I learned a lot from him through this process over the years. So,
Yeah, that brings in the opportunities. And again, when everything you're doing it yourself, it's hard to really understand 1,000 different industries at once, and like the books and the TV appearances and
yeah.
blah. And you're like, okay, the help certainly pays dividends. I'm sure when it does.
And again, it happened organically. Like if someone's like sitting there and they want to do a job like this, it's not like all of a sudden we have Good Morning America and podcast talking about like so many years of slowly building that list, right?
Well, yeah, consistency and patience and time the seeming theme with a lot of creators, and unless you're already famous from being a movie star and then you decide to start a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
different
write a book and
story.
then you're
You
fine. But
know,
yeah. But yeah, same thing with public speaking. The very first time I got paid to speak for $500 was like an old high school friend of mine who also happened to be living in New Jersey asked me to come speak at like her summer program for like teenagers about money because she wanted it was like a program to help teenagers learn life skills. And I was like, yeah. And I was like so excited about the $500. I'm like, this is awesome. But that was good because I was cognizant enough to use the money to hire someone to come video it. The guy lived across the street from me. And so he came with me, he videoed it. And so I got a lot of different clips to make a speaking reel so that I had one, which is like the most important thing is to not, when you're pitching yourself as a speaker, you don't want to have like yourself on a random high school auditorium in a grainy video. So he made like he was a wedding photographer, videographer. So he had all these cool transitions and he made me look like way cooler than I was speaking to like
uh-huh.
30 kids, right? And I mostly speak every year at my industry conference. My industry conference is FinCon. It's a financial bloggers conference. So a lot of experience each year doing that. But again, always like public speaking, always been comfortable. I'm from the deep South, so I did a lot of pageants growing up. So lots of stage stuff. And then again, through that agent, same thing. This way more successful personal finance personality is already booked that day, but I have this one. Do you want to look at their profiles and their websites and stuff and decide? And like that's how I've gotten other things again through the agent.
Okay, so the book essentially, it can open up a lot of doors to
Oh
you.
yeah.
Whether
Hmm.
you were speaking before the book came out. Again, the whole package of the personal brand is what brings a lot of these opportunities your way.
Yeah, and I did a talk at my industry conference on how I got the book deal. And it was like, it was called like number 28's the charm, like, and so because I know that lots of people who do blogging are interested in that as a next step. So I wanted to explain how the process works. So I've spoken not only about the topic, but about the book process as well, just to try to help other people interested in the same thing.
Oh, no, I think that's really invaluable. That's why I'm asking you, because I think people listening, it's like, to hear someone that's done it, to just kind of hear the steps of what you took. And again, like you mentioned, it's not going to be the same steps for everyone. Everyone's not going to have the same, friend from this part of town and that, whatever, that's going to help or not help. Or, some people just, you win the lottery it's just, it's
That
Yeah,
would have been
you just
nice.
have no idea how things are
Yeah,
gonna pan out, but getting back to, like, moms, right? And millennial moms, right? What would you say are the most or the unique challenges that they face when it comes to just managing money in general?
sure. I mean, I think that women who are millennials and moms in this time like are in a very unique position, like age-wise, society-wise, time-wise, because you're in this like sandwich of your parents are getting older, but you have kids, right? And our generation, they a lot of them have student loans, but they want to save for their kids. Like people in, Gen X, they don't have as many student loans as millennials. Like this is the time when college costs really started to increase and student loans became a lot more available. And we're talking about people just taking out tons. So they're saddled between all of these things where there are millennials in their 30s who are trying to buy a house, trying to pay off their student loans. So much societal pressure from social media that you're not doing enough as a mom, that your kid didn't do this, that your house doesn't look like this, that your pantry doesn't look like this. And so you have all these moms who feel less than because of social media, but they have all these immense financial responsibilities. And then now, again, economically, we've got inflation, increased grocery prices, still the pressure to go on every vacation and Instagram about it. And mostly what moms want to do is just provide a great life for their kids. But at the same time, they also need to plan for themselves and their retirement and their futures. And I just think I don't know, I think millennial moms are kind of in a
Mhm.
pickle right now. And it in order to be successful financially as a millennial mom, I honestly believe that you have to go against the grain. You have to be kind of weird and not do things the way everyone else is doing them because it's unsustainable for the most part for the average person.
So being, like, unconventional.
Yeah, like, renting instead of buying a house maybe down the road. Like I ended up selling my house and renting after my divorce because I knew that I needed to increase my savings, give myself more of a run. I knew I needed to take that money out. There's so many different things, but just like maybe not buying a Stanley Cup, or maybe like not caring about, designer
Yeah.
things, which and just being like, hey, when I reach this goal, when I pay off my student loans, like then I'll buy my designer bag or whatever. But just bucking the trends of just being like, I don't care if I don't match every mom at pickup, because my financial security is so much more important. So it's just you almost have to have like a completely different worldview, or it's totally fine if I take my kids camping and not to Europe because
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
they're kids. Like I'm going to save. Let me take them for their high school graduation present or for their 16th birthday or whatever. But again, just giving up the idea of just trying to keep up with everyone else because it's unsustainable. Like I said, for most people who are just moms and just trying families just trying to like put their kids in soccer and just like put groceries on the table.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny you said that. When I was 10, my father took me to London on a trip, and it was great. Like, it was a
Perfect age though, like you remember it.
yeah, it's like I have vivid, and we didn't do many trips when I was little. Those, probably on a plane 2 or 3 times ever until like I was 19 or something.
It's special things. Yeah, special things.
But yeah, flights and it was again, it was more the frugality, and then you kind of reward yourself when you hit these milestones, right?
Yeah, of course. And I think it's more of an internal dialogue of knowing I'm still a great mom, even if my kids, if I decide not to put them in travel sports. Like I decided not to put my daughter in like a dance competition company, not because of money, but because it was like 4 days a week and she was little and all these different things. But I think sometimes we worry that we're going to ruin our kids' lives if we make this choice for them. But when I was writing my book, and no offense to travel teams whatsoever, when I was writing my book, I came across research that it was like 64%. I think that's the right number of parents go into debt for their kids' extracurricular activities. And it's like we all want our kids to so badly to like have every opportunity, but it's at the expense of ourselves and our own futures. and we're not really doing a service to them by making ourselves broke. So for me, I just really try to stay true to myself and stay true to my budget and try to explain things to my twins like the best I can. It's like, yes, I can do that. Let me think about that, or let me talk to your dad about that, or whatever it is. But it's not always an immediate like, yes, baby. It's like you can do this crazy thing. I let them know, okay, well, I have to check my budget for that, or I have to, even if it don't, I'm just like, oh, there's a process that you go through to like think about buying things like this.
Absolutely. And I think it's again, that's like an old tried and true sort of lesson that you can teach kids no matter what generation, right? Like, or like the value of a dollar, that a lot of people, especially like you said, with the social media and as technology advances, and you don't really see that people are very like flashy, which they may not be maybe back in the, like you said, Gen X or boomers or whatever it might be. Oh, you see celebrities, but it wasn't like your next door neighbor was on TikTok with, right? So it's a different playing field, I think, to a degree, even though a lot of these influencers are probably just, putting on something for show, not, they don't own it. It's not their lifestyle. They're just portraying something for a product.
It's a really small percentage of people who are successful influencers, and the ones who are it can make an amazing income from it. And so totally, they'll have a beautiful house, but it's okay if you don't match that lifestyle because you have different
Yep.
incomes. But I think people forget like what a small percentage of people actually have like plus 100,000 social media followers.
Yeah, exactly. And how about like for people looking like steps to you can sort of build financial confidence? What do you sort of recommend in that realm?
I think like a really easy way to start is to read a money book. That's for you, not by finance bros. There's lots of nice finance bros, I'm sure. I'm teasing, but I loved watching people pay off debt, like on YouTube, and like watching the process, or reading like a debt payoff blog. I used to love to like see people's progress and just kind of like change your Instagram algorithm to like personal finance people, budgeting people, investing people who represent where you are in life, who you can relate to. Maybe find someone else close to your age or your age plus 5 years who can give you those steps. Somebody who is, showing you how they're paying off $80,000 of student loan, someone relatable, and watch the steps they're taking, because it's who we surround ourselves with, right, that impact us. And if you're spending all day watching Amazon try-ons, which, love it, here for it, thanks for the bathing suit, Rex. I, want to train my algorithm though to not make me want to buy stuff. I want to look at, young women who are like buying their first rental property to rent out, or investing, or people are just getting started, and start to take yourself away from the way because your current reality is going to keep going if you don't change anything. You keep watching the same shows, eating the same foods, having the same habits, nothing about your life's going to change. So you have to do something different in order to get there. So following new people, signing up for new newsletters. If somebody makes you feel less, if anyone makes you feel bad on social media, unfollow them. Start to take ownership over your own mind and, how you feel about yourself and your world, and like change your world yourself. And you'll notice you start to get impacted and influenced by people you actually want to be like.
Yeah, I mean, and how about like your environment? Not just obviously you wrote a book in the middle of a pandemic with two kindergartners, right? But like your physical, like where you live, like you said, you were in the South, you were in Jersey, now you're in like the Detroit area, which kind of has this like gritty, tough, resilient,
Yeah.
how does like living there influence what you do, just in general, like your entrepreneurial sort of path?
Yeah. I mean, I can say it's a lot more affordable to live here than it was just outside of New York City, but we definitely still have a lot of pockets of Detroit are very wealthy suburbs, and so it's different. But I live in just like a cute little town with cute little shops I walk to, and walk to the ice cream shop, and but I can go 10 minutes over and there are supercars, parked at every restaurant. So it's more just what you decide. And it's hard to choose, right? Because even though my kids live like a normal life with me, they still go to school and they still hear about stuff and they still want a Stanley Cup. So it's like I'm battling against forces way
They
bigger
have
than me
friends. Yeah.
here. Yeah, and as kids grow, right, as they get older and become teenagers and beyond, they, look to friends, not parents, for influence and advice. And so my time is really like ticking of like what I can teach them. I know they're always going to, come to me for different things because I still go to my parents for things. But yeah, I guess it can't really control like what other kids go to school and things like that. But I at least try to create an environment that is like balanced for
Hmm.
them. Like we get pizza on Fridays, but we don't go out to eat every
Right.
night.
Yeah.
Right. I make food at home every night. So I just, they each have their own allowance. So again, no problem with this. There's a lot of moms who like every time they go to Target, they bring something home for their kids. When my kids ask me if they want something, I'm like, cool. Did you bring your card?
Yeah.
Oh, can we go to Starbucks after school? Totally. You brought your card, right? And then sometimes I'll surprise them and pick them up from school and I'll hand them their little Starbucks muffins, right? Or their cake pops or whatever. But just try to have a little bit of balance. But I always try to get them to think like this doesn't just happen. This just doesn't come out of nowhere. Mom works while you're at school and then now you have a roof and food and all these great things. So
Yeah, no, I think that that's really great to sort of instill in your kids, and I'm very similar to this. So this is speaking my language, and I think people listening, it's opening up their minds to okay, maybe they're a little to this or to that with their kids, and this is a fresh perspective in my opinion. And beyond that, like you had recently co-founded a like a personal development company and a podcast, right?
yeah,
Called 5 Year You.
5 year you.
And that's like you want to help 1 million people become their best selves in 5 years. So can you talk a little bit about, how that you envision that happening or the goals or
Yeah. Well, I co-founded it with my business partner, Andrew. So Andrew and I met at a personal finance conference like 6 or 7 years ago, and we've both been personal finance bloggers for a long time. And we've done a couple of projects together. Like I wanted to buy a website and like he bought it with me. And so even though I still have like all my freelance writing, I do also own websites with him. We have very complementary skill set. It's like I do the writing and the editing, and he's like a very tech oriented. But there's one thing in common about both of us, in that we are both personal development junkies. And we love all the books, all the podcasts, all the things. We love figuring out, if I can shave like 5 minutes off of this, what can I do? And he's really taught me about B plus work, because everything I wanted to put out and do, I wanted it to be perfect. And he taught me about like, you need to execute things in business. You can't make money if things are just in your head, right? And so together we sort of push each other. And I've had like a big life change. Like I told you, I just got divorced 2 years ago, and everything I thought my life was going to look like, everything like you dream and envision and plan, just all of a sudden kind of went up in smoke. And it was like the most terrifying thing, but the most exhilarating thing at the same time. It's like you think you're going to be with someone 50, 60 years, like my parents are on their way to doing. And you have all these thoughts and how it's going to be, where you're going to live, how it's going to look. And then is blank all of a sudden. And so the two, my partner and I were talking, and he was like, let's just think about like, what would we do if there was no chance that we could fail? Like, what would we do if money to start the thing was no object? And because there's a lot of times, like, I'll take this financial writing job, even though I don't really want to write about life insurance, but I'll do it because I need to pay for this house,
yeah.
So like there's stuff, even though I'm self-employed, there's stuff I still do that I don't really want to do. I do it anyway. So we kind of started talking. We realized like a similar trend with us was always personal development. And everything that we do has a personal development element. Even money, we're like money mindset and like what do you think and like what habits and so over the course of like a year or two, we kind of came up with this idea like, honestly, the thing we like most isn't personal finance, it's personal development. That's like our
Mhm.
jam. That's what gets us sparkly. We're like, oh, did you read this one? And like, oh, this book's finally available from the library. And like, here, can I log on to your Audible because you have that one? And and the thing we love most is helping people. And I'm happy to talk to people about budgets and money, but like the thing that I'm good at is being that initial motivator for somebody. Like, don't come at me with a business idea because I'm gonna be following up with you like in 2 weeks, being like, all right, what steps did you take? Did you get your URL? Did you do that? Like, don't tell me unless you want accountability, because that's how I work. So we came up with this idea. And like you said, the goal is to help 1 million people become their best selves in 5 years. We felt like 5 years was a good amount of time. Like people, if you try to change too much too fast, like if you ever made like more than one New Year's resolution, it's hard to make so many habit changes at once. And the idea is to teach people how to start from within and not coming at it as experts, gurus, therapists, but being like, we are two humans on this place called Earth, like all the rest of you. And here's the journey we're on. Here are the mistakes we've made. We're both highly sensitive. So we're like, we go deep on all the topics. But the idea is to start with yourself, to learn how to honor your preferences, to learn what you like and decide what you want to do. And then from there, it affects your relationships with your kids or a partner. And then from there, it's like, oh, wait, I know myself, my preferences. What kind of job do I want? Do I like my job? Go from there. Where do I want to live on this place called Earth? And who do I want to be around? And then, the outside, we call it the circle because it starts from the middle and it goes out. But so many people are living on the outside, which is like social media and accolades and awards and job titles and things like that. And everybody's chasing the outside, but inside they feel alone and they're depressed and they like hate their life and they like hate the pickup line, which I still hate the pickup line at school, and like all these different things. But so as we are learning how to go from the inside out, we are talking about our lessons. So our podcast episodes are like how to be your own best friend and topics like who's holding you back. Because the thing about personal growth is it changes your reality once you start to change your reality. And that can be a great thing. And it can also be a scary thing because the people around you change and your relationships change and all kinds of things happen. So we're really excited about it. We still have all the other businesses and stuff, but this is a passion project. And so we're excited to see where it goes.
That's great. I mean, I think, 5 years is certainly for most people should be attainable, right? Because like you said, the New Year's
Yeah.
resolution, all right, everyone, the old joke about, the gym or I'm going to eat, right? Like
Yeah.
for sure. That's, I don't know if it's still a trend, but, gym memberships definitely tended to trend, right?
Spike.
Yeah, right
Yeah.
after. So 5 years seems, again, more than, sufficient time for someone to really, and, again, going from just this to this to this to this actionable sort of steps. Like, how do you guys feel like individuals can sort of maybe like break free from this like shame and expectations? Is that something you think is brought on like by society, like their friends and community, or where do you think that people coming to you, like they're coming from the most, right? Like what are the needs that those people are trying to address?
I think that so many people are unhappy. It's interesting you mentioned the word shame. I think shame is one of the most challenging emotions to feel because what shame is, right, is you feeling unworthy within yourself. It's a little bit different from like jealousy where you kind of want what someone else has. It's sort of a reckoning that you're having with yourself that you feel like you're not good enough. Well, where do we get these lessons that we're not good enough? From our society, from parents, from gender norms, from all of these different things, from social media. And that's how we develop these layers of life in the ring because we realize most of the people who are unhappy and unfulfilled are living on the outside. And in order to learn how to get all the way on the inside, which is like the innermost ring would be like your soul, your being, whatever you believe, it's just like who you are on the inside. The very first step is to honor your preferences and to be true to yourself. Because the people who are the happiest and the most content are comfortable with who they are. Shame comes from when you think that you should be doing something else or different life. And so a personal example for me is like my divorce brought a ton of shame. Like no one's divorced in my family. I come from like majorly Catholic family. Everybody's like married forever. And so for me, it felt like the biggest failure I could possibly have. And that's because in my family, I something happened that went against like the norm. And so that brought shame to me. I think a lot of people feel shame when again, we keep bringing up the Instagram thing. I should do this for my kids. I wish I could bring my kids to Disney World. It seems like everyone's at Disney World right now for spring break or whatever you want to tell yourself. And so you tell yourself, I'm not good enough. Or when you see like perfect couples on Instagram and then you feel bad about your marriage when maybe your marriage is like completely normal and like someone didn't put the dishes up and like that's super normal, right? So the only way to push through shame is to accept who you are and to be kind to yourself, which is so hard for all of us. And you can do little things like you can just be nice to yourself. You can buy yourself flowers, start treating yourself the way that you would like to be treated and putting yourself first, which is a hard concept, especially for those of us who are parents. But I always give the example like somebody who is allergic to gluten, but they're like, I already put 2 pizzas for the kids because one likes anchovies and one likes this. I'm like, do I really need to add the third gluten-free pizza? And it's like $12 more. You know what? I'll just like nibble on the kids' pizza. Like it'll be fine. And it's like, it's amazing how much power you can give yourself by being like, I'm ordering the gluten-free crust, guys. And like putting yourself first and honoring your preferences. And that is going to go from pizza to like every category of your life until you're living your authentic life and doing what you want to do and living how you want to live. And that's what brings peace. But it's going to be a process.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take time.
5 years at least, right? Good.
Yeah, at least. I can't imagine like 10 years from now, but we always say like, think like we're not the bosses on the
Sure.
5-year
Yeah.
journey. Like we're not the guide. You yourself 5 years from now is the guide. What would he say? What would she say to you? What choices would she make? Would she get out of bed right now? Or would she, eat a healthy dinner? Would she order herself the gluten-free pizza? Like, who do you want to be? You don't have to like step into fancy shoes or like go on the expensive vacation today, but start taking action and behaving as though you are the person of you 5 years from now. And then eventually you will become them.
Okay, that makes sense. That's a great philosophy. And how about like when that plays into someone who, we always hear work-life balance, right? And even like you
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah.
obviously, you're
Yeah.
entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
As you said, you're divorced, mother of,
Yeah.
boy, girl twins. You have a dog, rescue dog,
Yeah. Yep.
finance expert, right? Like, how do you balance all of these things? Which again, some people might say, well, I just go to work and I have a nanny, or I stay at home and I don't work. So but you're doing it all, right? So how do you personally balance all of that?
Yeah, no, I have plenty of breakdowns for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to act like I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I time block and I just succeeded at all these things. Like, I definitely push really hard every day. And I definitely have my moments of feeling lonely. It often happens with the kids, like if they both want me to put them to bed at night. And like, that's when I get sad. I'm like, if only I had a partner here to help me with this part. Like, you feel like you can't do enough. But I work in all the pockets of the day. I always have. I used to teach before I became a full-time blogger, and I used to get home and then work on my freelance articles until I made enough from freelancing that it overtook that salary. And so I have never had like a 9 to 5 day with these kids, because even when they were little babies and they would nap, I'd bust out an article. And there's definitely been times, especially post-divorce, where like, you get depressed, there's like no energy and business way slows down. And then there's times where like you feel like you're on fire and you're like, oh, I'm going to eat healthy too. And I'm going to take a walk with the dog, and like, you're like killing it. So for me, I get it done by working in all the pockets of the day. I bring my laptop everywhere. I am writing articles and sending emails at the tennis courts for my son, at the dance studio for my daughter. Piano teacher's house has terrible internet, so I might pick a new one next year just for that reason, And there is no balance. I always say like there's one big category. It's either like parenting, work, and the house, and one of those things can't get done. So if I like am killing it and like all the laundry's done, like I for sure am going to be up late writing an article I didn't get done. Every now and then, like I'll pay for a one-time cleaning or something like that. But my kids will be 10 next month. And so they can help out a lot now. and they kind of manage themselves now versus like having 2 3-year-olds that are like pulling on you all the time. Like, they just want to watch a show and do their own thing. There's not really a balance. There's just more like doing stuff all day long, all the time, and then trying to get a good night's sleep. Sort of how it works day to day here.
No. And then what about like goals and aspirations for you as a, personally and professionally? Like what do you see for yourself, or what are, because you said, a lot of what you did in the beginning was like, checking this off my list, my bucket list, whatever you want to call it. What do you see for yourself, going forward personally and professionally?
Yeah, I think that personally, the ultimate goal is to reach financial independence because financial independence equals work freedom, right? So I told you, like, there's some jobs or some clients or some things I take on that aren't my favorite. And so to me, like, an ideal scenario is like every job I take or every company I work with is because like I'm really jazzed about it. I'm really excited about it. And in order to reach financial independence, I feel behind on that. And so I, have all the spreadsheets. I have my very first spreadsheet in my Chrome browser is MDC for Million Dollar Cat. And it's like a goal to maybe the next 5 to 10 years to get to that financially independent part. So I track my net worth on the first of every month, so I know how I'm doing. And I just try to be really smart about the process. I am hoping that 5 Year You does well. Like I haven't enjoyed a project more than that. We definitely have plans for a 5 Year You book, but again, just growing it and starting it. Like I'd love to get to a point where the podcast earns an income. Like I'm sure you can relate to this journey as a podcaster. It'd be cool to add that as another stream of income, or have it earn enough to like sustain itself with editing and things like that, because we outsource that. So yeah, I have a lot of different goals, but I think that being financially independent is like first and foremost for me, especially now, because I just want to make sure that I can take care of myself if I need to down the road, and then have a little bit of work freedom. I've been laptop independent and free for a while, but when those twins go to college, I feel like, man, I can live anywhere, I can work anywhere. So I'm looking forward to that, but trying not to rush the process in the interim and just enjoy them as they grow.
Yeah, it goes fast. And I think that that's, someone told me a long time ago, you got to make sure you take care of yourself, because take care of mom and dad, or mom or dad or whatever, because the kids are not going to be doing that when they get older. Not some do, but majority of the
Yeah,
time it's, okay, there's a,
right. Well, it's a gift to them,
yes.
right? Their mom being financially independent won't put pressure on them to take care of me when they have their own kids to take care of or whatever. So it is for me, but also trying to give them the gift of like, yeah, your mom's got her stuff together. It's all good.
That's a better way of saying it. So how about for people listening, like if they want to check out everything, from connecting with you, 5 Year You, find your book, like and I'll put all this in the show
Yeah,
notes, of course, but for people
thank
listening,
you.
where can they find and follow and connect with you?
Yeah, well, if you are interested in personal finance content, I am at momsgotmoney.com, also on Instagram at momsgotmoney. And if you're interested in the personal development content in our new 5 Year You podcast, you can search 5 Year You on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And we're on all the socials at 5 Year You, and it's spelled out. So it's FIVE yearyou.com. TikTok, Instagram, all the
It's a
places.
great handle. So, that's a very, I like the name. And I think it's a great concept, because I think those steps are very achievable for the
Yeah,
most people.
thanks.
And just for your time today, thank you. I had a great time just listening to your story and how inspiring just your story is, let alone what you're doing for
Thank you
other
so
people.
much. That's very kind. Thank you.
No, absolutely. It's been great to get to talk with you, and I really think people should check out everything, because you have a lot going on. It's all positive, and I think people can learn a lot from someone like you. Not just moms. I think people that just want to get things together financially, personally. It's just a great person. Great to connect with you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on. I really
Of
appreciate it.
course. No, this is great. Have a great rest of your day. I can't wait to see what you do next. And I'm following you, and I'll continue to, be a supporter. So thanks for your time today. And thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Experience Curve. Please take the time to share this podcast with a friend or colleague to help get the word out about my show.